Behind the Shades.
Name is Gabriela Chang. You can find me at that domain, gabrielachang.com. And I am a feminine embodiment coach. And what that means is that basically and mainly I help women come back into their bodies. So throughout history, women have been labeled as inferior. Femininity is labeled as weakness, and we are all afraid of vulnerability. So in my own personal journey, I had to go through this process myself and come back to my body. I had no idea how disconnected I was. I was in a marriage for 9 years, and unfortunately, their relationship was depolarized, which basically meant I was the go-getter, the doer, the successful, and he was more of the passive. Let's go with the flow. Everything is good. No need to do more. But that actually creates separation in a relationship. And, after deciding that we were not good for each other, I went into this journey of finding myself, only to realize how much I was denying of myself. So I was running for 20 years in survival mode, running on autopilot, not feeling anything at all. I was called I was labeled as cold by people who met me, as somebody who had no feelings, like the ice queen. That was me. So getting into this journey of embodiment, having to go through rupture, which means open up my heart in such a way that I had to feel absolutely everything that I had never processed since childhood. So us women have a lot of pain in our hearts, a lot of accumulation of resentment, of, kind of hating on men. So we have to do a lot of healing around what is masculinity, what is femininity, what does it mean to be a man, what does it mean to be a woman, right? And I'm focusing on heterosexual relationships here, but energetically, this also applies to homosexual relationships and whatever you identify yourself as, but I do focus on heterosexual relationships. So I help men and women understand hormones, how being out of balance affects your relationship, your well-being, why women get overwhelmed, why we start doing and overdoing and overgiving, and we stay too long in relationships that we shouldn't. I help them understand abundance, manifestation, the energy of, cause and effect, and pushing and pulling. And that is the polarity, and that is the law of attraction that are always playing in our relationships, whether we are aware of that or we are not.
So you were married for 9 years, you said, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. And when was the first indication where you're like, this is going somewhere where I don't want it to go, and this may be a type of relationship I don't want it to become?
I feel that was like for many women, they even say, when a woman gets to this point, it's like a switch. Once that switch is off, you cannot turn it on, no matter what you do. Once the woman says, this is it, because we have tried already for so long. So that was my case. I tried for so long to work on things, to share my feelings, to even go to therapy, because I felt confused as to what are we doing, where are we going. I just felt unfulfilled. I felt that there was no attraction, there was no chemistry, and it was just, to be honest with you, boring. But I wanted to stay married. I didn't think that I wanted to get divorced or anything like that. So I tried to communicate, and after feeling in, how do you say this? I remember telling him I don't feel safe in the relationship. And that's where polarity comes in. And he will tell me, but we have this house, we have, finances are good. Like, what do you mean by that? It makes no sense. You make no sense. And of course, I had no idea what I meant. I just had this feeling of not feeling safe. And that, for the feminine, when we don't feel safe with a man, when we don't feel protected in the relationship, not in the physical way or financial way, but the emotional way. If I don't feel safe in my relationship, I cannot get completely naked and reveal all of me. So I'm going to withhold. And that is going to create separation. So as a woman, a man who is in his masculine energy, grounded, strong, has goals, is driven, and he wants to fulfill his role in this world and bring the best to make the world a better place, that is very, very delicious for a woman. That's what we want. That's what we're looking for.
I think communication is so important to every relationship, and men and women, unfortunately, at times do such a poor job at it. So, for example, you communicated some of your issues, right? You're like, I don't feel safe. This is what safe looks like to me. And then the person has a decision. They can either say, yeah, Gabriela.
The interesting thing is that I don't blame him, because we both lack so many skills. You as a relationship coach as well, that if we don't have these skills, we're going to kill it, no matter what. And when he asked me, what do you mean? I was like, I don't know. I just don't feel safe. But I didn't have the descriptions, the words to say more what I meant by I don't feel safe, So it was easy for him to shut it down. If he had the skills and I lacked them, he could have guided me. He could have said, what do you mean by not feeling safe? Can you explain more? Can we explore this? Maybe you mean this, because maybe he had done any research, but he had no idea. We were both completely lost. And so we couldn't make it work.
See, I would agree with that. But then I always like the comparison about work. When your boss or your manager or someone at your job asks you to do something, or they will say, hey, can you do this? Or they tell you to do something, most people will ask, okay, what is it? How can I do this? Whereas when it comes to the relationships, as you mentioned, I don't feel safe. What does safe look like to you? Because if it was the reverse, he or she wouldn't need training. It would just be common sense, right? Let's say if there's children involved and the child tells the parent, I feel sad. Wouldn't most people say, why do you feel sad? Right? I think that's like a logical and a mature way, even though you may not be able to say specifically what safety or what being safe looks like to you. If you were asked, I think you would have came up with an answer. Do you agree?
Yes. I feel that questions are so important in any relationship, whether it's work or familial relationships, whatever it is. We have to know how to ask the right questions too, because sometimes we can start asking questions that really get the person to feel defensive, to feel attacked. And that is not ideal either. But can we learn how to ask the right questions to guide the person or to get the right answers to? Sometimes we can ask questions and we get the wrong answers and then we get frustrated. But I asked the questions. Yeah, but it was the wrong question.
What does safe look like to you today?
Excuse me?
What does being safe look like to you today?
For me, means that I will be received whether I am being right or wrong. When I am being wrong, for example, I am not being judged. I am not being criticized. I am not shut down. I am not being told whatever, or you're making this up, or they're not trying to fix me. Instead, what that means for me, because I'm now in my feminine energy with an open heart, it means that he takes the time to have that space, to hold space for me where I can express myself safely, where I can go deeper instead of feeling that, oh my God, I said something wrong. I should not have said that. Or I should fix this and think this way, and we start getting into those thoughts of not good enough, or I'm doing something wrong, or feeling shame or feeling guilty of something, So instead, for me, it means that, well, she may be wrong. However, I want to understand her perspective. I want to understand where is she coming from.
I used to date a girl, and I used to have these types of conversations before I even knew what they were about. You know, sometimes you talk to someone about something, and then when you look back on it, you're like, okay, this is what I was trying to do. And I was trying to find out what her safe space was, or at least a safe environment, because this was someone that anytime there's an argument within the household, it would very quickly become physical. But it become physical between the women. So the women were very physically aggressive, right? In how they handle things. So when her and I would have a disagreement, she was very quick, right? To be aggressive. And you're trying to understand, okay, I understand that you're being protective of yourself and you want to be safe for yourself, right? And a part of you being safe is to attack before you're attacked. When you're working with the men and women, do you help them to understand and maybe define feminine behavior and masculine behavior?
Yes, absolutely. I help them understand when he needs to be in his feminine energy. And for this, I mean, men need to get into that feminine energy. We all have feminine and masculine energies. That's the yin and the yang. However, I do recommend men to be more in their 80% masculine energy so that she can be in her 80% feminine energy. That means that men are leading the status of their relationship. Men are moving the relationship forward. Men are making us women fall in love with them and doing all the planning and all these things, right? But he also has that 20% that he needs to get into his feminine energy. So when he gets in that 20%, she's going to get in that 20% of masculine energy. That means that she's going to be holding space for him when he is in need of that emotional container, that she's going to be holding space for him, that she's going to help him by just listening to him, by just, you know, maybe giving suggestions without having to fix him, without having to do it for him, by helping, by guiding him, by asking the right questions, or by just listening without saying anything else.